Income Tax and GST. To handle this session, we have a very eminent speaker, CA G S Prashant. I request Chairman of Bangalore Branch to escort him to the dais. I would like to take the privilege in introducing Mr. Prashant GS, who is the fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and is practicing in Bangalore. A graduate in commerce, he pursued the CA course and qualified in November 2006. He is practicing in the field of direct taxes and is mainly involved in search and survey matters, corporate taxation, transfer pricing, international taxation, and handling litigation and representation matters at various levels. Before setting up his independent practice, he was working as manager in taxation in Mrs. Singvi Devi and Noni, a chartered accounting firm in Bangalore. He has also presented more than 100 papers on direct taxes in various seminars, conferences, and other professional platforms. He has previously served as co-opted member of the Committee of International Taxation constituted by the SILC of ICI and also the faculty at the Bangalore branch of SILC of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is also served member as the Finance Advisor Committee in the Karnataka State Cricket Association. He is also occasional faculty at Fiscal Policy Institute, Government of Karnataka. Currently, he is the member of the Regional Direct Taxes Advisory Committee, Karnataka, constituted by CBDT under the Ministry of Finance. Member of the Central Taxes Committee of Federation of Karnataka Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Member of Direct Tax Representation Committee of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. Member of the Fee Fixation Committee at Adichitungiri University, Karnataka. He is also the life member of the Bangalore ITAT Bar Association and is presently serving as its secretary. With this brief introduction, I would like to welcome you again and also would like to hand over the dais to you.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I thank the Bangalore branch for giving me these twin opportunities of being program coordinator and also as a speaker in today's session. We are indebted to our parents for life. We are indebted to our guru for the way we live. I take this opportunity to place on record my deep sense of respect and gratitude to my mentor CA S Prashant, who has been a guiding force and factor in my endeavor profession. Also, my respects to CA D Devraj and CA A Shankar, who mentored me at various stages of my professional career, which has enabled me to present myself before this august gathering. To set the tone down, as indicated in the opening session, the topic chosen for discussion now is comparative provisions of search under income tax and GST. The moment you hear the word search, or colloquially known as IT raids, or what you come across in newspapers or various media platforms, what comes to your mind is an authority ingressing or coming to your premises forcefully to check something that you probably are suppressing from them, and probably it is not as dramatic as probably all of you would have visualized by watching it on the television and the display. It is not as dramatic as that. It's not that they come, beat you up or put you in a corner, tear apart all your furniture. It doesn't happen in the dramatic way that it is depicted to be. Nevertheless, it is definitely, to a certain extent, your privacy is compromised because they are entering your home. But whether that particular entry, is it violation of a fundamental right? I'm afraid no, because it's a reasonable restriction placed on your freedom when the authority who's empowered to protect the revenue, to find out undisclosed transactions or transactions you have not suffered tax, or you have secreted any goods which are otherwise liable for tax under the GST laws. It is their duty conferred upon them to undertake this activity of survey or search or inspection. That being the case, how do you start this proceeding and what is the intention behind the search? Is it always, are you attributing motives to that? as we come across in our daily life, saying the moment a ED raid takes place or an income tax search takes place, the bigger the person who's been raided, the statements differ. And you would, by standard, you would have understood now that they attribute motives to saying he or she being in a particular position or power, politically or otherwise. But coming to the legality of it, it is mainly to ensure that the unaccounted money in circulation should be brought down, because ultimately it is detrimental to the growth of the economy and nation building as well. Next, what happens? Is it really arbitrary? Can you say that the provision of such is arbitrary because they are being given unfettered powers to enter your premises and break open locks, open your almirahs, check everything, impound, seize? Taking stock is one thing, impound and seize. Does it suffer from, should at all the provision of such pass the doctrine of arbitrariness? What is this doctrine of arbitrariness? To strike down any provision saying that it is in violation of law or of fundamental rights, it should first pass the test of doctrine of arbitrariness. Unless you are able to establish that the particular action by the authority empowered under law is not arbitrary, it is based on a sound belief and principle, based on, I would not say cogent material available on record, but based on reason to believe in certain terminologies under GST, reason to believe and reason to suspect, both under the income tax laws, and to the extent there is a formation of belief by them, if it passes the text of doctrine of arbitrariness, the search or inspection or seizure provision would continue to be constitutionally valid. And most of you are talking about the Constitution today being November 26, it's the Constitution Day as well. So therefore, Constitution gives a lot of importance to fundamental rights. But how do you look at the authority of the officers? Is it giving any, because it's a serious invasion of privacy by the authorities who are coming to your premises. Because no premise there is sacred. It may be sacred to you, it is not sacred to them. Your puja room, your master bedroom, your bedroom, your bathroom, nothing is spared, because we have seen as to where the gold, jewelry or money can be hidden. So what is really private for you or privacy insofar as you are concerned, it is they are following their call of duty, they are bound to enter everywhere. Again, reasonable restrictions being placed on the things. When can the search be undertaken? Under the income tax, 132 subsection 1 will bring up 3 subclauses, 132 1 ABC, under which a search will be standard of saying that where in consequence of information in his possession, the authorized officer has reason to believe. See, this term reason to believe, we need to understand in depth, because this term has ramifications in income tax and the GST both. Because under the GST laws, it's an evolving law. Even under the GST laws, when you go back to the term reason to believe, wherever it's used under 67(1) and 67 other places under the GST Act, you have to necessarily fall back on the judicial precedents which have driven the term reason to believe from probably 5 or 6 decades under the income tax law, and this term is evolved. What is this reason to believe? It is a formation of a belief by an authority based on information in its possession, which should be reasonable and after due application of mind. It can't be arbitrary, which is why I said it must pass the test of doctrine of arbitrariness for it to be called a reason to believe. Once you are getting on to reason to believe, you have these 3 subclauses wherein summons under issued under 131(1) or 142(1) was issued and the assessee fails to comply, or they also fail. 141 when we issued would not produce, which means the office has failed. If we issue a summons or a notice also, you may not really respond. They may have information with them. Or third clause, a person is in possession of money, bullion, jewelry, and it represents income or property which is not or would not be disclosed for the purpose of tax. This will be the mandatory conditions under 132(1) to say. But the most important term here is information in his possession. What is this information? Is it gossip? Is it hearsay or is it the gospel truth? Should it be one written in stone? How do you classify the term information? Not really too much because it's not my meaning. Information means instructional knowledge concerning facts or particulars of law. By its inherent nature, a fact has concrete existence. This particular observation, what you are saying, is not my wording or my understanding. It is the Supreme Court in 119 ITR 996, Indian Newspaper Society, wherein while dealing with 147 matters, the Supreme Court said, what do you mean by information? So which means any information which the officer thinks that he has got a particular information with him must either relate to both facts or law or both. And then they will proceed on to, and it must be something more than a mere rumor or gossip. It must exist physically. It can't be in the mind of the officer saying, really, I am thinking something is going on, tomorrow I will want to raid Kuber. It doesn't happen that way. Kuber, the name may say wealthy man, but it must be proven with a document on the file that he has really got unamassed wealth for which we must really go and search him. And merely me being in the officer's head that he is a wealthy person would not mean it is information in his possession. So once we cross this test of information, reason to believe, I am not getting into very specifics or detail in terms of these terms because that itself would take away 2 hours of discussion to say what is information, what is reason to believe and reason to suspect. Under the GST, under 67 of CGST Act 2017, the provisions of such can be looked into from 67.1. Of course 67.2 also, but 67.1 is the proper officer authorizing to inspect any places. Look at the difference here. The power of inspection, under the income tax, you have a survey, you have a search. There is no specific provision to inspect under the Income Tax Act, but under the GST, because it is evolved from the Central Excise and Customs Act, the power of inspection was always there. You inspect any place of business if you have reason to believe. See again, any place of business, which means inspection will be probably perimeter to survey under income tax, because survey under income tax also will be on business premises unless during the survey it's found out that you have kept documents in other place. But other primarily inspection covers place of business, has reason to believe. So this terminology reason to believe, again it's found its way in GST also. Again 2 conditions wherein the taxable person has suppressed any transaction relating to supply of goods or service or both, or the stock of goods and or has claimed excess input tax credit, or has indulged in contravention of any of the provisions. The second limb of it is has indulged in contravention of any provisions is probably wider in term, because if you look at the first one, it is limited to transaction which is already existing concerning goods or services or both. Next is has claimed excess input credit. Claiming of excess input tax credit may happen on 2 or 3 methods. You claim more than what you are eligible for or more than what you are entitled for. You claim something which you are not at all entitled to. Or you claim something now, as my friend says, based on what is depicted in the portal, because nobody knows what is going on in the portal. Okay? So, if you claim, whether that can be, those questions will be answered by the experts in the panel discussion. Next is, any person engaged in business of transporting goods or an owner or operator of a warehouse or a godown, keeping goods, escape payment of tax, likely to cause evasion of tax payable, which means there is a hint of suspicion also here built in. Under the income tax, 132.1 information reason to believe, you also have 132.18 dealing with reason to suspect. Income tax has got both reason to believe and reason to suspect. Here, reason to suspect is not specifically brought out, but the terminology used in 67.1b to say that in such a manner as is likely to cause evasion of tax brings with it its own element of suppression, which means then he can inspect. Look at 67.2. 67.2 is proper officer either pursuant an inspection or otherwise, which means it need not be only the conditions satisfied under 67.1a and b. First you will inspect, and based on the inspection you find the contraventions taken place, you will conduct the search and proceedings of assessment under GST would follow, and valuation and penalty prosecution procedures thereunder. But 67(2) has used the word or otherwise, which means it is not a necessary factor that you need to first inspect to then to search. It can either be these conditions, or he can have direct information in his possession which leads or which has got material evidence with him to say that you have suppressed your turnover or claimed excess input tax credit or you have contravened other provisions of law when under various modes not payable taxes, then he can apply the power empowered by using 67(2). If you look at the continuation of that, pursuant an inspection or otherwise has reason to believe that any goods liable to confiscation, for this term here, has reason to believe that any goods liable to confiscation or any documents, books or things are secreted in any place, he may authorize to search and seize or himself do so. Which means, under 67(2) of GST, once you are talking about reason to believe, for goods liable to confiscation, the conditions laid down under 130 subsection 1 needs to be satisfied for GST. Only if the conditions under 130 subsection 1 are satisfied, only then such of those goods become liable for confiscation. Then the goods will be confiscated based on 130 subsection 1 under 67(2). And then next limb is on any documents, books or things, which means the terminology goods liable for confiscation would be limited to 130 subsection 1 read with 67(2), whereas the other portion of documents, books or things are not subject to 130 subsection 1, because 130 subsection 1 is dealing with only confiscation of goods and what circumstances goods can be confiscated and let off after payment of fine and penalty, so on and so forth. But the documents or books can be seized under the powers vested under 67(2). Next important terminology used here is are secreted in any place he may authorize to search. Now what happens? Premises named, say first floor of a building is earmarked as business place, they have come for inspection or a search, both assuming that they have done the inspection, converted to search, or information that it is already suppressed, they have come. Then they find out through transactions that the goods or documents are likely to be secreted in some other place. Then, does it give the power to the officer to immediately go to that premises? Can he walk into the other premises?
No.
Why? Why not?
You need to be authorized by the proper.
He may authorize or search and seize or may himself do so. Then what happens? Read it carefully. Proper officer, once he finds out that goods are secreted, he may authorize to search and seize or himself do so. When he is authorizing somebody else, he must have reason to believe that the goods which are liable for confiscation or documents are secreted somewhere else. Therefore, he authorizes some other officer to go and search based on proper documentation and the forms thereunder, or based on his own recording of satisfaction, he can go to the other premises also. Whereas the distinction will be, we will talk about in income tax as to how it happens in terms of other premises. One important aspect will be all searches are inspections, but all inspection are not searches. Look at this statement. GM Agadi Brothers, old Mysore sales tax case, 32 STC 243, which means it is like once you are getting on the next stage of the inspection, which is a search, by default you will be inspecting the records. But whereas in a mere inspection, you would not be ingressing on their rights and privacy of their homes or whatever. Therefore, all searches will necessarily have the element of inspection built in, but all inspections will not necessarily cover, or can never have the ambit or topic of search getting covered there. Who can authorize search? A host of officers under both. They talk about proper officer in GST above the rank of JCAT, and they have given out different nomenclatures here. What are the powers? Enter any premise building, reason to believe money, break open the lock, Look at this here. Subclass 3. You have read 67(2) of GST. Now look at 132(1) subclass 3. Search any person who has got out of or is about to enter if he has reason to suspect that such person has secreted the books registered of the person searched. Which means secreted term is used even in the Income Tax Act here to say in a different meaning. Here it is not dealing about the person searched. It is searching any other person, maybe employees who run away when seeing income tax party, or various other employees or business associates or whoever. Then, when the income tax authorities are entering the premises, if somebody is entering with them or going out, they need not have reason to believe. Mere suspicion is enough. They can search him, find out if he has secreted any books pertaining to the person searched. So, this terminology secreted probably will have more relevance in how the Customs Act has dealt with it in terms of concealment and secreting of goods and evasion of duty. It's more prevalent in the indirect taxes regime rather than in income tax, because it's income tax, it's direct to have found something, gold, jewelry, or in bullion form, or cash, or property papers, nothing else. It has to be something tangible for you to be. But whereas under the income tax, they would have found various novel methods to hide the goods itself. No. The payment for it might have been through banking channels, but the evasion of duty might have taken place. They may be concealing the goods for payment of duty, but subsequently they may sell that goods and offer it for tax by collecting GST and claiming input and so on and so forth. Maybe only for the purpose of the import duty they might not have disclosed that particular goods. The powers are common under breaking open seals, break open any cupboard, electronic device. One important distinction you have to make out here is, you may be forced to break open if you don't cooperate with them. But say for example, they find your mobile phone, laptop. They can't access any code breaking it open. What do you mean in a electronic devices breaking it open? Necessarily password protected, encryption, so on and so forth. Can you be forced to give a password? See, you have an almirah. You have, say, stored bundles of notes there, jewelry, bullion. You don't give it, they will break it open. Say you have the most advanced locker, they will call the maker of it, show them the power, issue directions to them, commissions to them saying, breaking that open with authority of law. Whoever will do it, any of your security agencies or whoever, say you have a Godrej locker, highly advanced technology, fingerprint, retina, etc. You are not cooperating. They can contact the person who's installed that to break it open. Fine. What happens to your personal mobile, laptop, your iPads, tabs? Can you be forced to give the password? Because they won't find anything by breaking it open. And it's not easy that every electronic device they will be able to crack the passwords through using hackers, ethical or otherwise. They may not be able to crack all passwords. And what happens? Because in the digital world today, you really will not find tons of paper being kept under cupboard or in briefcases or on the attics. Everything is on your palm. Everything is here. Then what happens? Then we go back to Constitution. 20 subsection 3, Article 20, you see a power not to self-incriminate yourself. You did not give any evidence to any authority, including police or magistrate, which will jeopardize your own interest. Self-incrimination is protected under the Constitution. You need not reveal anything which will be detrimental to your own self. So you have that protection available there. They cannot force you to give the password. They can take measures under law by cloning the device. Then, assuming they find some materials there or incriminating chats, etc., etc. We have now decisions to say that WhatsApp chats are not really admissible as evidence. What happens to other transactions? Transactions which have otherwise escaped taxation, but some documents are found in your device, for which once they clone your device and make the replica of it through the hash value and the certification thereof. Under the Evidence Act, 65B of the Evidence Act, unless they give a certificate under 65B of the Evidence Act, that is not permissible as evidence in the court of law. You can say, I don't know what they have tampered with. They might not have tampered. Defense says, I don't know. They don't have that certificate in the 65B to authenticate that this transaction or the items are the replica which are found there. Wherein, even though for digital evidences now, 65B of Evidence Act becomes very crucial, the certificate to be produced under that particular section there. Otherwise, that may not be really permissible as evidence, or the department will be precluded from reading that evidence. Now take the second, and probably an example there to say, assuming they come search and you challenge it on some ground and the search is deemed to be illegal. Court will strike it down saying this is not permissible as evidence for this particular purpose. What happens? So search is struck down. But the evidence collected even in an illegal search can be used against you in a separate proceeding. Maybe in that proceeding they may preclude it. The court has said that the search is illegal, but you have a very old Supreme Court judgment, Puranma versus CA G 93 ITR 505, where the Supreme Court has said evidence found though in an illegal search can be used against you in any other proceeding, which means department is not precluded from using it subsequently. Then he may give you a notice that he has reason to believe that now the 148 is changed with terminologies, information, other things, but whatever. What happens is they will be still able to use that evidence, though in the first proceeding may be quashed by the courts for various reasons or technical reasons. The evidence found there can still be used against you. What is known as incriminating material. No, it is not my duty to tell him that please come raid me. It is his duty. I am protecting myself by constitution to say I will not give that.
Because it is a practical thing when they come to the office, okay, they will say, okay, we want to review your system, okay, open that, we will see your ERP. So everything is password locked. We only want to give all the access to their what you call these people. And if we don't that, then you are not allowing to perform my duty, you will see other agents.
Sir, I am afraid I have a different opinion, because if the information there will be incriminating against you, you are not required under the constitution to provide the evidence to them. They can use other methods. They can take away your laptop systems to the provider of services, get them through authority of law saying that we need this to be dissected, opened through password, encrypted otherwise, and then which is why now when the data protection laws are coming in, this is one of the reasons why they wanted the servers to be in India, so that the authorities here are accessible or answerable to the Indian government. Otherwise, when servers are located outside India, they need not go down to the Indian courts or a magistrate's order here saying provide these details. So therefore, it is imperative that a plain tally password or ERP password, what you said, may really not be incriminating against you. But when you know that your personal devices may contain or has evidence to implicate you in a matter, you can actually take a position and say, look, I am taking shelter of Article 20, subsection 3 of the Constitution. You may proceed. They can record statement, mention that you refuse to give your password, and they can proceed. They can include, they can go to authority. Just because they are not able to find out something does not mean that we are there to assist them. No, it's the other way around. In fact, in assessment, it is a duty of the officer to assist the assessee for returns and refund. It is not my duty to assist him to arrest me. He has to perform his duty in the more diligent manner. So therefore, I would still take a view that if at all the evidence that is present in the particular device will be against you or which will lead to you being implicated there, you can still refuse to give that.
Sir, can you take the same stand in other proceedings other than such?
Like?
For example, in assessment, they ask some information.
What information? That is important. If you are saying that there is something in assessment that which is detrimental to you, which means you are leading them to come and search you, saying that you have something hidden. This is a case wherein implicating you when they have come to search you. When they ask you any information during the course of assessment, you are duty bound to provide it, information. Provided to the extent it does not implicate you personally. If the department is able to dissect that particular document and come to a conclusion that you evaded payment of taxes or you have undisclosed income, they can come after you. It is not like Bhagavad Gita to say, boss, this is final, this is what I am saying. I will not give this information. Okay, don't give. Non-production of information, they can draw adverse inference against you that you do not have that information. You may have it, you are not giving it. So department's contention will be adverse implication to say you are not providing the information what I asked for, you are not giving me any reason to not to give it. So therefore, the reason that the officer to communicate it to you, saying please provide the document of sale deed or prove purchases, prove sales, or show that actually goods were brought into your godown. You say I am not going to give anything, which means either the presumption will be against you when you are not giving it. So therefore, it's not that you can use it in every proceeding. It will be limited to the leading of evidence when it comes to implicating you personally in a matter.
Sir, but does it not amount to non-cooperating in the proceeding?
So non-cooperation cannot be at my personal liberty. Which is why I said Article 20 subclause 3 of the Constitution provides you that immunity to say you need not lead evidence if you are getting implicated.
Even section 161 of CRPC also provides the same.
Yes. CRPC again, from where will it draw that power? Once Constitution 20, Article 20 gives it, even if CRPC doesn't provide it, it will be against the Constitution. So therefore, it has to pass a test of it being constitutionally valid for other laws to be followed. So therefore, under CRPC, yes, and more so in the Civil Procedure Code when you are leading evidence and marking of documents, it's very imperative that if department is not able to lead it through proper evidence in the court, more so in the Economic Offences Court and all, now they are making a lot of hue and cry about convictions, prosecution, other things. It's not so easy for them also, which is why they are also coming out with innovative techniques to catch hold of you.
Sir, further to add to that, access to the computers, the responsibility is cast on the person in Section 71(2).
Come again?
Under Section 71(2) of CGST Act. So any person authorized to inspect. So can
You must allow them reasonable access to inspect the books of accounts, records, or other documents of the company.
Yeah.
Notice, which is why I said, the moment you say company's books are also implicating you, it will not be a personal defense or I will not give you anything. Fair enough, they will impound the document, seize it, make an order saying you did not cooperate. So you need to have that thin line of distinction as to what is your personal liberty or implicating yourself personally vis-a-vis the liability of a company or transactions therein. It's not that every offense, which means in any such people can say that I will not give you. Still they will be valid. At most what they can do, you are not providing them information. Cooperation is what? You have given them access. Let them do what they want. They can't force you to, like you don't give the key to the locker, they can break it open. Here, he has to do it on his own by using external agencies is what I am saying. Practically what happens is a little different. But theoretically what is possible is what I am telling you. Practically how it happens, what you provide, password, otherwise is a different discussion for another day. But theoretically under law, what happens? What are your rights? See, you have a citizen's charter laid out in 208 ITR Statute 5 as to what are the rights of a taxpayer during a search. You have a host of rights. Take one more question, because we are talking about personal rights and other things. Whether right to sleep is a fundamental right? Is it a fundamental right? And even under the CRPC and CPC, right to silence has been held to be a fundamental right. You have a right to remain silent and not give any answer. Right to silence is acceptable in the court of law. They may implicate you based on evidence, but your right to silence cannot be taken as non-cooperation. But whether right to sleep is a fundamental right? Can you say that I need to sleep when they come for search? Definitely to certain possible yes to say, but not in the actual terms, but whereas when the recording of statements happens at odd hours and other things, you can actually say right to sleep is a fundamental right. I don't think there's a direct income tax judgment on that, but you had this Ramlila Maidan case with, in the Delhi High Court writ petition when the protesters were chased at midnight and other things. So the court said that right to sleep is a fundamental right and you could not have disturbed it. So you need to take cognizance of those things to say, look, my routine is to sleep from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. They should allow you. Let them sit in the corner and wait for you to wake up. And say that I will give the statement in the best of the minds. Though it might have been searched one way, other. You will allow the statement to be given at whatever odd hours, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Have the plea at the earliest possible instant to say, I was not in the best frame of mind because of the statement being recorded at odd hours, and therefore that statement could not be taken to be voluntary. Because the statement has to be voluntary during the course of search. It can't be forced upon you. Confession cannot be forced upon you. Anyway, under the CRPC and IPC, anyway, it's evident. The confession before police is not admissible as evidence in the court of law. Similarly, forceful confession, though CBDT has got a guidelines also, they issued circular in 2003 to say that forceful confession should not be taken. Be that as it may. But the law is that the statement must be voluntary in nature.
In actual reality, what happens?
So it is being recorded. I hope you got the answer. These are part of the reason to believe. It's come out here, and IPC also has got this reason to believe, saying that a person is said to have reason to believe a thing if a sufficient cause to believe that thing, but not otherwise. So therefore, why I came back to reason to believe it is that the recent amendments have taken place in the Income Tax Act 5 years ago, 2017, wherein they brought out to say, provided that the reason to believe or reason to suspect, as the case may be, need not be disclosed to any authority or to income tax appellate tribunal. Which means, the reason to believe why they came to you. Somebody had a query to Ravi Prasad Sir on the Companies Act thing to say whether should they be giving it to you at the time when they enter. In income tax at least, before the amendment, we had a reasonable thing to say that we need to be aware as to why you have come, not the basis of information. That we need to know on what basis have you come to search us. Which are the links under chapter 14 that you are wanting me to get attracted to 131 ABC. On what basis have you come to me? Warrant, authorization, lot of other host of aspects are there, but reason to believe or reason to suspect, they ought to have recorded in the file. Why did the amendment come? Celebrated judgment. My Guru Sri Shankar argued in the High Court in the celebrated judgment of Rama Reddy versus SCAT 339 NTR 210, wherein the High Court said the appellate authorities have got the right of looking into validity of search. Once you question the validity of search, the materials which form the basis for undertaking the search ought to be placed to you. You had a Supreme Court judgment in SD Aluminium wherein the Commissioner of Income Tax was empowered to look into the authorization, which means administratively, Commissioner of Income Tax appeals lower in administrative hierarchy than the Principal Director of Income Tax who would have authorized the search. The junior officer will sit in judgment whether his superior applied his mind. That was SD Aluminium, wherein CA G S could not have really gone against, but that was the law. But amendment came in to say will not be disclosed even to the appellate tribunal. Carefully enough, they have avoided the word courts. Because the moment you say not to disclose to anybody, it is again arbitrary, which means you are keeping it to yourself. Somebody will have to test what you are doing. Okay, you don't want to give it to the first appellate authority. Commissioner appeals anyway is your own member. Income tax appellate also you don't want to give it to, saying that they do not have the legal power to call for the records of information or recorded. Courts still have the power, which is why what is precluded is not to be given to income tax authority or tribunal, not the courts. So if you are able to establish perversity or arbitrariness in the action of a search party, when you approach the courts can call for the records which will indicate the reason to believe as recorded by the officers there. and then come to a conclusion whether the reason to believe was valid, and consequently whether the such proceedings are valid or not.
What about RTA, sir? Can a person apply through RTA mode?
Madam, there is no bar in you applying. The answer you will get is because this information is confidential in nature and in national interest in public policy, it will not be given to you. That is the answer. We have applied. This is the place we have got, and because it will be national interest and secrecy and official secrets, it will not be given to you. Even if you appeal, you won't get it, because under the RTA also you have the statute provides the authorities the power not to disclose any information to the extent that it may be not I will not say safe for them, but it is not in public interest according to them. It is not required, so they will not give it to you, that information, and will become a classified information for the purpose of RTA also. This information, you won't get it. This is what I was talking about. But under the GST, because it is still evolving law, there is no specific provision which debars you from questioning the reason to believe of the officers. Which means once they have come, you can't question them then, once they come. But you have every reason at the earliest possible instance to question what was the reason to believe, whether that reason to believe as recorded by the officer will pass the test, saying whether it's actual reason to believe or not. Reason to suspect, you have nothing, because the word itself has that he is only suspecting you. But if it has passed the test of reason to believe, then under GST still you can question that. The moment they come, finish the proceeding and go back, and when they record the statement, because to the best of my knowledge there is no specific provision like 132(4) in income tax and GST to say to take a statement during the conduct of such, which will be, because 132(4) statement will be admissible evidence in the court of law, because it's a voluntary statement given during the course of such. It can be used, the statement can be used against you unless you prove that the statement was obtained on account of coercion, undue influence, or your fundamental rights being violated at odd hours, you are not in the best frame of mind, so on and so forth. Only then you will be able to take that option. Coming to 67(2) of the CGST, what are the secreting? The proper officer reason to believe that books are put secret in any place, which means, this is why I refer to the Customs Act judgment to say, it cannot be said that the documents have not been secret with the meaning unless they are hidden or concealed. In the context section, the words documents are things which are likely to be secret. In other words, documents are things which are likely to keep out of the way or put in place and the officer cannot find it. So it cannot really dig it 5 feet and keep it. It can be, but it is in a general place outside his access whereby normal application of mind is not able to find it. That is called secret under 67(2). So 67(2) will have the ingredients under 132(1) subclause 3, which has got a secreted but only searching a person who is likely to get out of the place or getting into the place. But under 67(2) of the GST, you have the goods which are secreted or documents which are secreted. Then the authorized officer, he himself can search or authorize another officer to conduct the search. Once the assessee himself says that the goods are kept elsewhere or documents are kept elsewhere, in the normal course, which means he has secreted that there, and the officer will be able to get to the other premises under authority of law. He cannot directly enter without the authority. This is charter what I was talking about. So saying to see the warrant duly signed and stamped, which means the powers of the assessee or taxpayer are that they can see the warrant. You cannot seek the copy of the warrant. They will show it to you, but they won't give it to you. You can verify the identity of each member. So this, according to me, will be applicable even in GST. It is not that this charter is applicable only for income tax searches, because it's a tax-based charter, though issued by CBDT, does not mean it need not be followed by the GST officers. And these things you will be able to question in GST also, to insist on personal search of ladies by ladies only, to have copy of any statement. What happens here? To have the copy of any statement recorded, the law is that you can have the copy of the statement, but the department can give you a reply saying, I will give it to you only if I am going to use this against you. He still right. Just because he recorded a statement from you, you can ask a copy. Department can reply saying that he will provide you the statement only if he is going to use it against you. Which means your rights are not being taken away, because if he is not using against you, you can still ask for it, but by having it also you are not serving any. But you can still insist on the document to say, to give further
The problem is
evidence, documents, say that I might have told something there, I need to verify. You have in the civil procedure code, I think you have something called refreshing of memory, wherein you can take time to refresh your memory or give documents officially to say that you would not at present know that, but you can take time. This is permissible under civil procedure.
usually under retraction, the person who gave the statement doesn't recollect.
Retraction, I'll come to that later. I'm coming to that. See, admission and retraction are two terminologies which probably go hand in hand with search under both GST and income tax. Though specifically not used somewhere. What happens? What is admission? Either when you give a statement under 132(4) of the Income Tax Act, or a statement recorded during the GST search, that statement can be and will be used against you as evidence, because you have voluntarily given that statement and law provides for it. But what is retraction? Retraction is your ability to show that the admission was on a wrong notion of facts or law or both. Once what I quoted here is in Supreme Court in Pullangode Rubber Produce Company, 91 ITR page 18. At page number 20 is this observation to say that an admission is an extremely important piece of evidence, but it cannot be said that it is conclusive. It is open to the person who made the admission to show that it is incorrect. Which means if you are able to demonstrate through evidence that a statement made so-called voluntarily by you during the course of such, may it be under income tax or GST, if you are able to prove that the statement given by you then was incorrect on law or facts, that statement cannot be relied upon. Again, can you do that after a time lag? Courts have consistently held that the earliest point in time you do is the best defense for you. It's not that you cannot do it at a later stage, but it can't be termed as an afterthought by the courts. Take a situation under income tax wherein you have given a statement during search, admitted to certain incomes, not retracted specifically, but when the notice is issued for filing a return, you will not include that particular admission but you file the return. What happens to that?
Return is valid.
Return is valid, of course. According to me, the concept of deemed retraction, though I have not specifically said that for reasons I am not admitting that, it's a deemed retraction, department is not going to accept it. But in so far as assessee is concerned, by admitting under 132(4) and not making it part of the return filed after such, it amounts to a deemed retraction, which department is not legally bound to accept it. Again, you are supposed to give it evidence during the assessment to say why the declaration was incorrect. Department stand will be, you made a statement, therefore we are following your statement and bringing it to tax. If you are able to establish that again that particular statement by you was on a wrong account or able to prove it by evidence, that cannot be really brought to a tax. The presumption during such, there is no separate provision under GST to have a presumption against the assessee when the such is being undertaken. Because under 132(4)(a), during the course of search, it may be presumed that books found are belonging to the person, contents are true, signature are in the handwriting of a particular person or signed by the person. Which is why here, handwriting, yes, but if it is loose sheets of paper found, printed papers, you have to go back to the judgment of Jain Hawala case, LK Advani and others, to say that loose sheets of paper are not admissible as evidence. It needs to corroborate it with the facts available on record. A mere printout of Excel document saying 100 crore, 20 crore, 30 crore, 40 crore will not lead to any result. But it's a long fought battle, but ultimately will succeed because department cannot really fasten a liability on you based on loose sheets unless they are able to corroborate it with the seized materials. Though they may presume that it is yours, but the presumption is rebuttable. It's not that it is sacrosanct. And you also have Supreme Court judgment to drive home the point that the presumption is rebuttable. Under GST, at least as of today, there is no such specific provision to presume that the goods are yours or not yours, or the contents found in the books are true. Provisional attachment under the income tax from Finance Act 2017 during the course of such, now they can provisionally attach your property. Before 2017, you did not have the power. The provision, now it exists in GST, was almost the provision in income tax also, wherein provisional attachment is possible only during pendency of assessment proceeding. To say that when the officer believes that there is going to be a liability which is going to be passed into the assessee at the end of the assessment, and the assessee may move his assets or transfer his assets or sell his assets so as not to pay the taxes, they were provisionally attached. What was happening? After such before assessment, there used to be a time lag from the investigation wing. By the time it reaches the central circle, before the case is centralized, the assessee has parted with the assets or gifted his property or sold it and enjoyed the money. Department had no legal recourse to say that such transfer was void because there is no liability on that day. Just because you have come to my house and searched and taken some documents, you cannot say I'm a defaulter. Defaulter or liability being fastened on me can be proved only when the assessment is in progress at least, let alone it being finished. It must have been started. So therefore, provisional attachment is permissible during the course of such an income tax, but not possible under GST. Yes, sir. Correct. No. Provisionally during search. Next is the applicability of Code of Criminal Procedure. 132(13) deals with a simple line saying provisions of CRPC related to searches and seizures are so far as may be to search and seizure. What is this? You can take protection of police personnel. You can call upon any officer of the state government to assist you in the search. Similar thing is under CGST 6710 to search and seizure, subject to the modification that 165(5) of the CRPC shall have the, instead of magistrate, it will be commissioner, because there is a power to arrest in GST which is not there in income tax. The inspector or the commissioner has the power to arrest you in terms of violation of evasion of duty more than 1 crore, 2 crore, 2 crore to 5 crore, 5 crore and above, based on the conditions and the monetary limits specified therein. They have the power to arrest you, and they will be treated as station house officers or police officers to the extent to let you off on bail. Otherwise, what will happen if you have got the magistrate within 24 hours of that particular thing under the Civil Procedure Code? Only for the particular thing, they have relaxed that provision to say, for the purpose of searches under GST, when the word magistrate appears, commissioner is entitled to let go of somebody on bail, subject to him taking whatever bank guarantee or whatever other necessary conditions, but he has the power to grant bail, but that does not mean he steps into the shoes of the police officer for all other practical purposes. Even customs officers under customs law have the power to let go of assessees on bail, but they cannot be treated as police officers for the purpose of other provisions of the Act. Only for the limited purposes of giving a bail that the commissioner has been equated with that of a magistrate, or given the powers that the magistrate normally enjoys, they are given it to the assessee. These are a lot of case laws which can go through. Now about the constructive possession of goods, wherein both under GST and income tax, where it is not possible to seize any valuable article or thing due to its volume, weight, physical characteristics, dangers, etc. The proper officer may serve on the, this is called deemed seizure or a prohibitory order being placed. During such, even though not for seizure, they will place a PO on an Almira, they have come, they have completed the search, and then they come back to open the PO. The legal issues which arise there are twofold. One, based on the judgment of Ramayana, the warrant or the search warrant is a single time entry. It's not a season pass. Once he enters, he is supposed to complete the search and go back. He can place PO, which means he has come to the premises, searched the entire house, taken records, seized whatever is necessary. He finds there are a lot of documents in an almirah which he is not able to look into it then. He will place a PO on the almirah and leave. Legally, theoretically, the provision is next time when he comes to open the PO, he has to open only the PO, he can't search any other place in the house. If he has placed a PO on the almirah in the house, he has a right only to open that PO and not check anything else. This is the theoretical or provision of it. What happens is nothing, but theoretically, the power is extended only to open that PO. Here, once they seize it, stock in trade cannot be seized under income tax. If a particular goods are here stock in trade, they cannot be seized during the course of such an income tax. But whereas goods, stock in trade, which may be stock in trade or capital goods both, if found that the relevant taxes have not been paid or the provisions have been contravened, they can be seized under the provisions of GST. Perishable goods, depending on the nature of the perishable goods, by specific order, the government may order it to be disposed of. The proceeds hereof may be kept by the government to say that it is more lying with them in a what happens in a cash season income tax, they call it as a PD account, personal deposit account of the commissioner. Similar to that, they will have it in more like a your money lying with the government department. The proceeds of the perishable goods will be with the department. I don't think they will park it to you. I don't think you will be entitled to take the sale proceeds. The money will be kept with the department and subsequently adjusted against the liability if at all it arises, or else you will get the refund of it. Retention of books, more of a theoretical provision. Release of seized goods on provisional basis. You had 132(5) earlier, specifically under Income Tax Act, which was permitting you to take the released goods. Now there is no specific provision, but you can make an application to the concerned CCIT or CIT to say that this is the goods seized, this is the market value, because they would have got it valued. You can deposit that money and then take the goods back. There is no problem with that, but there is no specific provision as it existed. 132(5) was there. Now there is no specific 132(5) on the statute book. But insofar as GST is concerned, they can release on a provisional basis against the bond for the value of the goods. And they must also, procedurally, they have been mandated that they have to furnish the bank guarantee for the amount due, which includes tax, interest and penalty. Which means tax and interest understandable that might have evaded, but penalty under the indirect tax regime is more of a mandatory nature rather than it being discretionary. Under the income tax, when we talk about penalty for such 271 AAB, the office has got the discretion, the officer may. But whereas if you look at the penalty under 122 in GST, among the 21 clauses available, according to me 122(1) subclause 10 differs from the other 20 clauses. Because 122(1) subclause 10 of GST talks about with an intention to evade taxes, which means the intent has to be proved. You get back to mens rea, and the judgments on mens rea will fall back upon the income tax to say whether mens rea was there on part of the taxpayer to evade. But the other 20 clauses in 122(1) are straightforward. Wherein you do this, you pay penalty. You do this, you pay penalty. It's a list of provisions, but 122(1)(10) stands on a different footing than the other 20 subclauses in 122 for penalty under GST. So whether when they are releasing the provisional goods, can you say that my case falls under 122(1)(10)? There is no intention to evade the taxes there, so therefore should I pay the penalty in the bank guarantee or not? Theoretically, yes, you will have to argue, but whether will they release the goods, they will say no. They will say, till such time, this is the value of goods you have determined, pay tax, interest, penalty on that in a bank guarantee, take it away. But otherwise, on the terms of argument legally, it stands differently. 122(1) subclause 10 vis-a-vis other 10 clauses stand separately. And summons and other things, by and large, there is not too much of a distinction between them. But under 131, you have the specific provision of examining an oath. And under survey income tax, what happens? I'm sure Pradeep sir is going to also cover that. Under survey in income tax, statement can't be recorded on oath. You have divergent judgments on both permitting you to record a statement and not permitting. But to my knowledge, because Supreme Court judgment is there that attendance examination of oath during survey is not possible, that statement may not be admissible in the court of law under the income tax. But they only in section 70 of GST they provide that as provided in the case of a civil code. So evidence, leading evidence, other things will be governed by the code of civil procedure and the summons. Under the income tax, you may fall back upon the Hague Convention for summons, saying how will you issue a summons and what basis the summons will be issued, whether a recording of satisfaction is necessary to issue a summons at all. But practically speaking, you will not be able to question that particular thing. In theory, though, you may be able to question the veracity of the issuance of summons itself, but practically I am afraid it is difficult to do so. Under the GST, I don't think the term judicial proceedings has been defined, but under 136, income tax, what they have done, any proceeding before income tax authority should be deemed to be judicial proceeding. Why did it come? Earlier, when the Supreme Court decided the landmark case of Lalji Haridas, they came to a conclusion that, look, it is not a judicial proceeding and therefore you could not have filed this complaint and therefore the case fails. Subsequently, the act was amended to say, any proceeding before income tax authority shall be judicial proceeding within the meaning of 193 and 228 and for the purpose of 196 of the IPC. But whereas under GST there is no specific provision to say that or definition to say, but by way of the deeming fiction under 70, all documents, data given pursuant to summons will be akin to given as if you have given it on oath, which means in good faith, and you will be liable for other consequences if you have willfully or falsely submitted any documents. This is what I was saying. Right of silence of a summoned person came up when we were discussing some other provision. So this is the police, as I discussed, you can take the power. And this GST also, you have now cases are coming through as to when you can recover the taxes, the manner and mode of attachment, and then investigation in the one of the latest instructions. I don't know if there is any instruction after this, because it's though it's a central law, probably you can call it as a like a daily tax reporter. You can have a daily instruction or notification reporter for GST to say what is there now. You don't know whether 25th May, is there anything which is superseding this or this continues to hold for?
This is the latest.
Okay. Luckily, for the last 6 months to date, nothing has come out. It's a welcome move. For the last 6 months, there is no instruction superseding this or removing this in the GST. Of course, they say that there is no bar on taxpayers for voluntary making payments. Who will say no for you making voluntary payment of tax payment? But at least they have said that they can't recover taxes during such an instruction proceedings, which means forcefully they can't ask you to deposit certain money, saying on account of various reasons. We will not get on to the such assessments and all, because there will be paucity of time. I will probably take 2 or 3 questions before we conclude, because Mr. Pradeep will be talking on the recent trends in penalty, prosecution and survey. So we can take some questions. One question I think which remained unanswered from Ravi Prasad session was 132.4 statement recorded. And then, sir, if you please repeat the question for the benefit of the audience. We will take that question first because we left it. We will commence with that question. And I will try to answer to the best of my abilities. If not, in the afternoon you will hear from the my boss Shankar sir. He will answer that if I am not able to answer that. Yes, sir.
So when a statement is given at 132.4, in most of the cases there will have a confessory statement from the directors.
It is?
Confessory, because in 132.4 there are so many undisclosed incomes they will declare. Confessed.
Okay.
That is, whether those provisions can be invoked for the purpose of investigation under the Companies Act, that was my point.
See, now looking at 447 of the Companies Act on dealing with fraud and the power of the inspector or the ROC as well as elucidated, saying who can do that. what are we talking about in 132.4? It is a statement given by the person searched or his associate or whoever, admitting to the moment, because you are saying that your question contains confessionary statement, that is admitting to certain undisclosed income.
By the director.
Okay, by the director, okay, by the managing director, by the key managing personnel, or the manager as specified under 2 subsections 60 of Companies Act. Agreed. All the persons that are covered, yes, they have given a statement saying that there was undisclosed income. They have sales outside the books of accounts, purchases outside the books of accounts. They have made huge profits. They have gold, bullion, jewelry, etc. Everything. Correct?
Yes.
They have admitted to the income tax authorities.
Sir.
Yes, perfect. What happens? You want to know whether it impacts the
Investigation and the provisions of the company.
what happens in company. Firstly, look at the veracity of the statement.
Fraud also.
No, both. If the director admits that by defrauding the company he has personally made assets and he is offering it to tax in his individual capacity, yes, in his individual capacity under the Income Tax Act it will be brought to tax, because just because a wrong person has been taxed does not mean the right person should not be brought to tax. 218 ITR, Achayar's case. Now, consequently, based on a confessional statement of a director, assuming that the statement is true based on evidence found during the course of search, as pointed out by Dr. Prasad sir, the other directors or other persons in the company can order for an investigation into the affairs or the transactions undertaken by the director on behalf of the company, and because the company can sue him, the company in its fiduciary capacity can sue the director saying it was legally the money belonging to the company which has been defrauded, and the company will be able to sue the director in his individual capacity to pay the monies back to the company. But that does not mean that the company's books are wrong or falsified, because as an auditor, when you have conducted the audit, what will you check is in the normal course by the applicable accounting standards and with reasonable due diligence and application of mind you have checked. And if during your sample verification and checks and text checks and samples, probability, so on and so forth, if it does not come to your notice that such transactions have been undertaken by the director, the company's books are in no way affected. It is only a civil liability insofar as I am concerned, sir. Professor, you can clarify. It's a civil liability insofar as the direct company is concerned to say it is claiming back something which was legitimately its, which has been defrauded by the director in his personal capacity. But it won't. And the other directors in the company can also order request for the inspection or investigation into the affairs of the company, because that director would have been a part of many such other meetings where he might not have necessarily made money or bought properties. He might have influenced other decisions. So you can request for investigation into the affairs of the company by summoning all the directors, looking into all the board minutes, resolutions passed, verification with creditors, whether the payments have been made, whether there is round tripping of invoices, bogus creditors, so on and so forth. The list is endless, but the company will have its right in the civil way. You can proceed to recover the legitimate dues to it. Nothing stops the company from recovering the dues or seeking for that money.
Take a scenario. For example, let's say 30 to 40% of the turnover is not been disclosed in the regular books of accounts, but it's been confessed in the statement 132.4. So my doubt was that because fraud reporting is also there in the auditor front, and mismanagement is also there in the management. So whether my question was whether the Companies Act was whether to, as an auditor, whether I should report as a fraud or otherwise. That was my.
This is what I said. By reasonable due diligence of and application of mind by the auditor, if it doesn't come to your notice that there is a fraud, I'm saying when I say reasonable application of mind, you should have conducted the audit in such a manner that the applicable accounting standards and generally accepted accounting standards have been followed, and then based on, again I repeat, your test check, samples, probability, etc. If nothing has come to your notice by reasonable application of mind by the auditor, his team and staff, then the company will not be liable to say it's a fraud in the company. Company can again in fact proceed against the director for having committed the fraud on the company. But the company as such will not be liable, and more so the auditor, because your working papers will become your saviors then. No working papers, probably you know where you land up with, but to the extent you have the document is available with you, to the best of my understanding and knowledge, the auditor cannot be held responsible if it is based on independent, reasonable application of mind.
So a small doubt, another issues I have. When conducting 132 searches, so normally they're switching out the CCTVs. I have two doubts. One is CCTV, other one is a satisfactory note and a AP report. Whether we can have a copy of it, because they're going to use to
See, insofar as CC camera is concerned,
they'll switch off once they comes. They will never
what they do is one thing. Are they entitled to do it? The answer is no. They are not supposed to switch it off. Yes, plain and simple, they can't. If really you feel that your rights are being invaded and there is nothing found in the process, please file a police complaint immediately saying that they have switched it off and that the search must be conducted only in presence of that.
So practically they're not doing is any ruling from the RCBT clarifications.
What happens practically we'll discuss during lunch. I think we should give chance to others. Your question.
So the statutory, that AP report copy we can hand it so it's no. AP report we can have the copy of the department. It's legal.
Your investigation copy or the reason to believe, as I explained, will not be given to you. If you are able to demonstrate to the High Court or Supreme Court that there was perversity or the action against you was arbitrary, which is I said it must pass the text doctrine of arbitrariness, then the court can summon it. In State Brothers itself, 74 ITR, Supreme Court has said you have a right to seek for the reasons after the conduct of such. And you had Karnataka High Court in Southern Harbour 207 ITR, wherein in the law existing then, without amendment, they said that the assessee is bound to get the documents on which investigation is carried out. But after the amendment, I'm afraid you will not get it. Only the court can summon it. We'll take one last question from any other participant.
So section 122 gives 10 scenarios for this one, for penalty. Can all
21 scenarios, if I'm right, under GST. 21 scenarios under 122.
So can multiple sections be invoked for penalty or only?
Not multiple sections. The penalty will be depending on the value of goods, the tax, interest, and penalty payable.
122 lists offences.
Yes. Penalty payable, you will go back to 73 and 74 and say 70, whether adjudication is 73.4 or 73.5, and whether you will pre-deposit and based on something you will pay only 25% or 15% penalty. If not, you will pay higher penalty. So the list will be under 122, 121 sub-clauses. You have to go back to 73 and 74 for the computation mechanism for the penalty. Thank you for a very patient hearing.
Thank you, Prashant sir. It was a wonderful session. I think a lot of practical insights you did give us. Definitely, I think we will take it in a practical spirit. As a token of gratitude and respect on behalf of Bangalore branch of SIC, I request Ravi Prasad sir to come up on the dais and hand over the moment to the speaker. Especially the energy when you put up on the dais.